From the reason when people hear about the rapture of the church, many people become afraid, they become scared when they hear that Jesus Christ is coming. Now, amazing enough, many Christians, even when they hear such preaching or such teaching of the coming of Christ, you see, fear grips them. Pastor Chris in this sermon tells us clearly that all those that are afraid, this means that they're not living right. It means that they're living in sin. That's why they are afraid, about the coming of Christ or about the rapture of the church. But he encourages us in the sermon that we shouldn't be afraid, because if you live right, you will never be afraid of the coming of Christ. So from the, let us watch and listen to the sermon together. God bless you.
So the next major thing to happen on these earths, my brothers and sisters, is the rapture of the church of Jesus Christ. This is the next biggest thing that is about to happen. Now I understand that there's some Christians, some ministers who are saying that the rapture is not imminent. It is not about to take place. In fact, some have said, for another 100 years it's not going to happen. Another 50 years. Well, remember, what did Jesus tell us to do? He said we should live as people who are waiting for their master. And some have accused us of making God's people afraid by telling them about the rapture. That is ridiculous. God's real people, when they hear about the rapture, they rejoice. If you are afraid when you hear about the rapture, it's because you're not living right. Anybody who's afraid when you hear the rapture, you are not living right. So what you have to do is repent and live right. Let no man deceive you. The time is short. Jesus is coming. These are all the signs. Jesus is coming. Don't let anybody deceive you. The time is short. Now, I said before, if you follow the chronology that I gave you from the scriptures, you would know why anybody who would have said Jesus would have come in 1978 would have been wrong, because the calculations have been there and it didn't show that it could fall into 1978 or 1982 and so on and so forth. I showed you why they were wrong. The Lord is coming soon. If you ever have doubts in your mind as to whether He is coming, you don't need to look very far. It's time for every Christian to prepare himself for the coming of the Lord.
And when a guy who's not your husband is asking you to go to bed with him, or a girl who's not your wife is asking you to go to bed with her, you are hearing the same voice that Jesus heard when Peter spoke and he said, "Get thee hence, Satan."
That is an amazing sermon from Pastor Chris. So, as he said, it is time for us to prepare. Every Christian needs to prepare him or herself for the coming of Christ, because it is a sure thing. Now, I love where he made mention that many people are accusing the church of putting fear in the world, that there's going to be the judgment, and though there's also going to be the coming of Christ. That's the second coming. We're not putting fear. It is a known fact. We know, we believe, we have faith in that Jesus Christ is coming, and His coming is very near. That is why we are mandated as Christians to go out there to preach the good news, right? And part of the good news is also about the coming of Christ to rapture us from this bodily world to heaven. That is where we are destined to be, to live eternity with Jesus Christ, where there's no sadness, there's no death, there's no wailing. That's where we all want to be. So this is so powerful. Let us remember the coming of Christ is sure. Let us prepare ourselves to meet the groom. Family, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.